I arrived at my sister's wedding 40 minutes early, wearing the dress I'd been told to buy in a text message 3 months prior. Champagne silk, modest neckline, nothing that would draw attention. The venue was one of those restored industrial spaces with exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that looked effortlessly elegant in photographs but required enormous effort behind the scenes. I could see the scaffolding of perfection in the way the florist rushed past me with armfuls of white peonies, the way the coordinator spoke into her headset with the urgency of a surgeon. My heels clicked against polished concrete as I followed the signs to the reception hall. The ceremony had been small, family only, held that morning at a courthouse downtown. I hadn't been invited to that part. Just keeping it intimate, my sister had said on the phone, her voice bright and reasonable. You understand. I did understand. I always understood. The reception hall opened before me like a carefully staged photograph. Round tables draped in ivory linen circled a parquet dance floor. Each centerpiece held white roses suspended in clear glass cylinders, backlit so they seemed to glow from within. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling in precise geometry. A string quartet tuned their instruments in the corner, their bows lifting and falling in warm-up scales that filled the empty room with gentle noise. I found the seating chart displayed on an ornate easel near the entrance. Gold calligraphy on thick cream cardstock, names arranged alphabetically. I ran my finger down the list until I found mine. Olivia Bennett, Table 14. Table 14. I scanned the floor plan beside the chart. Table 14 was tucked behind one of the venue's structural columns, a massive marble pillar that rose from floor to ceiling like a pale tree trunk. From that angle, you wouldn't be able to see the head table. You wouldn't be able to see much of anything. I touched the red thread bracelet under my sleeve, rolling the cotton between my finger and thumb. It was a nervous habit I'd developed years ago, a way of grounding myself when the world tilted. The bracelet had been a gift from our mother during her last summer, tied around my wrist with shaking hands while she told me to remember the truth of things, even when other people tried to reshape it. A woman in a black suit and headset approached me. "Can I help you find your table?" "I found it already, thank you." She smiled professionally and moved on. I walked toward table 14, my heels muffled now by the temporary carpeting laid over the concrete. As I got closer, the pillar grew larger, its surface smooth and cold when I reached out to touch it. Behind it, someone had placed a small round table set for one, not even two chairs, just one. A single place setting with ivory china, a folded napkin, a small votive candle that hadn't been lit yet. The menu card sat propped against a crystal water glass. I picked it up and read through the courses: seared scallops with citrus foam, herb-crusted lamb, roasted root vegetables, chocolate torte with gold leaf. In my RSVP 3 months ago, I had checked the box for fish instead of lamb and noted in the margin that I couldn't eat shellfish. The menu card showed no substitutions. I sat down in a single chair and realized that from this position, I could see only the marble pillar and a sliver of the dance floor. The head table was completely blocked from view. I would be able to hear the toasts, maybe, if the microphone was loud enough, but I wouldn't see my sister's face when the groom called her his wife. I wouldn't see her cut the cake or throw the bouquet or dance with our father. I would be here, behind the pillar, like a secret the family was keeping. The room began to fill. I watched legs and shoes pass by on the other side of the pillar. Women in heels, men in polished Oxfords, children in patent leather that squeaked against the floor. Voices rose and fell in that particular pitch of wedding excitement. Laughter that was slightly too loud, compliments that were slightly too enthusiastic. I heard my sister's name repeated like a prayer. Doesn't Claire look radiant? Claire is absolutely glowing. Claire has such incredible taste. A waiter passed my table without stopping. I watched him serve champagne to the tables I could partially see, his white-gloved hands tilting bottles with practiced grace. He circled back toward the kitchen and passed me again. Still nothing. I touched the red thread bracelet. The ceremony party made their entrance to applause and music from a live band that had replaced the string quartet. I couldn't see them, but I could hear the announcer's voice boom through speakers. "Please welcome, for the first time, Mr. and Mrs. Michael Chen." The applause swelled like a wave. I clapped alone behind my pillar, my hands making small, inadequate sounds that disappeared into the larger noise. The dinner service began. I watched waiters move in choreographed patterns, delivering plates to every table but mine. I could smell the food, rosemary and butter and caramelized sugar, but nothing appeared in front of me. After 20 minutes, I flagged down a passing server. "Excuse me, I haven't received my meal yet." She looked at me, then at the pillar, then down at a small notepad in her hand. "What table are you?" 14. She frowned. "I don't have a service note for 14. Let me check with the coordinator." She disappeared. I waited. The candle on my table remained unlit while candles flickered on every other table. The water in my glass was room temperature, slightly cloudy. 15 minutes later, a different server appeared with a plate. "Sorry about the delay," she said, setting it down without making eye contact. The scallops sat in a small pool of orange foam, already congealing. No fish, no substitution, just the food I'd specifically said I couldn't eat. I pushed the plate aside and drank the cloudy water. That's when I noticed someone standing at the edge of the pillar, watching me. A man, mid-30s, holding a camera with a long lens. He wasn't photographing anything, just standing there with the camera lowered, his expression somewhere between concerned and curious. "You've been back here a while," he said. His voice was quiet, meant only for me. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." He looked at the single chair, the cold plate, the unlit candle. "Would you like me to bring you something from the buffet? There's a whole spread in the back that's actually pretty good." "No, thank you." He shifted the camera to his other hand. "I'm Daniel, groom's cousin, also the world's least professional backup photographer." He gestured with the camera. "The real photographer is handling the formal stuff. I'm just supposed to get candid shots of guests having fun. But you're not having fun." "It's a beautiful wedding." "That's not what I asked." I looked at him properly for the first time. He had kind eyes, the kind that crinkled at the corners even when he wasn't smiling. Dark hair that looked like it had been recently cut but was already starting to rebel. A navy suit that fit well but not perfectly. He wore the camera like it was part of him, comfortable and familiar. "Why are you back here?" I asked. "I saw you during the entrance. You were clapping, but you couldn't see anything. And then I watched 3 servers walk past you without stopping." He pulled out the other chair. Wait, there was another chair? Folded and leaning against the pillar. He unfolded it and sat down across from me. "Do you want to be seen?" The question landed in my chest like a stone in water, sending ripples I couldn't quite name. Do you want to be seen? Such a simple question, such an impossible question. "I don't know," I said, which was more honest than I planned to be. Daniel set his camera on the table. "The bride's your sister? How did you know?" "The seating chart said Olivia Bennett. The bride is Claire Bennett. Also, you have the same nose." I touched my face reflexively, tracing the slight bump on the bridge that my mother used to call distinguished. Claire had hers fixed when she turned 18, a graduation gift from our father. I'd been 12 at the time, and I remembered asking if I could get mine fixed too when I graduated. "Why would you want to look like everyone else?" my mother had said, cupping my face in her hands. "This is the Bennett nose. This is our family." But Claire had gotten hers fixed anyway. "We don't really look alike anymore," I said. Daniel studied my face with the frank assessment of someone who spent time looking through camera lenses. "You look like what she's trying to look like, if that makes sense." It did make sense. It made too much sense. The band started playing something slow and romantic. I heard chair legs scraping as people stood to dance. The lighting shifted to something dimmer, more intimate. A spotlight illuminated what I assumed was the dance floor, based on the direction of the light. "Do you want to see what you're missing?" Daniel asked. "I'm fine here." "I know, but do you?" I touched the red thread bracelet. "Yes." Daniel stood and offered his hand. I looked at it for a long moment, the calluses on his fingers, the slight tremor that suggested he was nervous too, before taking it. His palm was warm and dry, his grip firm but not constraining. He led me around the pillar to the edge of the dance floor where we could stand behind other guests, hidden in the crowd but finally able to see. The spotlight illuminated my sister and her new husband, swaying to an instrumental version of "At Last." Claire wore a dress that looked like it had been spun from moonlight, strapless and fitted and covered in tiny crystals that caught the light with every movement. Her hair was arranged in perfect waves over one shoulder. Her makeup was airbrushed and camera-ready. She looked like a bride from a magazine, beautiful and untouchable. Michael held her carefully, like she might break. He was a nice man, I'd decided when I met him at their engagement party last year. A little boring, maybe. A pediatric surgeon who collected vintage jazz records and made elaborate Sunday breakfasts. He'd been kind to me that night, asking about my work as a technical writer, actually listening to my answers instead of looking past me for someone more interesting to talk to. Now, watching him gaze at my sister like she was the only person in the room, I wondered if he knew. If he knew about the pillar. If he'd seen the seating chart and thought nothing of it, or if Claire had hidden it from him the way she'd hidden so many things. The song ended. Applause. The band leader announced the father-daughter dance, and our dad stepped onto the floor. He looked older than I remembered, his hair more gray than brown now, his movements a little stiffer. He'd had a hip replacement 2 years ago, but I'd only learned about it from a Facebook post Claire had made asking for prayers. No one had called to tell me. No one had thought to mention it. I watched him dance with Claire, watched her rest her head on his shoulder like she used to do when she was small, and he was everything. He whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, bright and performative, the laugh she'd perfected for audiences. "Want to go somewhere else?" Daniel asked quietly. I nodded. He guided me away from the crowd, through a side door marked staff only that led to a hallway behind the kitchen. The corridor was narrow and institutional, all white walls and fluorescent lighting, such a stark contrast to the warm glow of the reception hall. We could hear the clatter of dishes being washed, the sharp voices of caterers coordinating service. Daniel leaned against the wall and pulled out his phone. "I shouldn't show you this," he said, "but I think you should see it anyway." He opened his photos and scrolled back several hours, then turned the phone toward me. It was a picture of the seating chart, taken before guests arrived. I could see the names clearly, see the table assignments, but someone had made handwritten notes in the margins. I zoomed in on the notation next to my name. Table 14. Move behind pillar for aesthetics. Keep sightlines clear for photographer. I read it 3 times, each word settling into my bones like cold. For aesthetics. I found the original chart in the coordinator's office when I was looking for extra memory cards, Daniel said. There's more. He swiped to another photo. This one showed a different document, a printed spreadsheet titled Seating Priorities. It ranked guests by importance: family, wedding party, Michael's colleagues, Claire's friends from college, extended family, peripheral guests. My name was at the bottom of the extended family section, marked with an asterisk. The asterisk led to a note at the bottom of the page. Sister, limit visibility to avoid question/drama. No +1 despite RSVP. I had written +1 on my RSVP card and included a note explaining that I was seeing someone, a man named James I'd been dating for 8 months. Claire had called me the next day. "We're trying to keep the guest list intimate," she'd said. "I'm sure you understand. Plus, you barely know James. It would be awkward." I'd met James at a technical writing conference. He was an editor at a publishing house, funny and thoughtful, with a habit of leaving sticky notes with terrible puns on my desk. We'd been planning to drive to the wedding together, make a weekend of it. When I told him the invitation was from me only, he'd been confused but gracious. "It's her day," he'd said. I get it. But looking at the spreadsheet, at the clinical notation of my irrelevance, I understood that it had nothing to do with intimacy. It had to do with aesthetics, with sightlines, with maintaining the visual perfection of Claire's carefully curated day. "There's one more thing," Daniel said, his voice gentle. "I probably shouldn't have this either, but the DJ sent me the slideshow file to back up on my drive, and I noticed something." He pulled up a folder on his phone labeled Bennett Chen Wedding Slideshow. Inside were dozens of photos arranged in chronological order. Claire as a baby, Claire as a toddler, Claire's first day of school, Claire's dance recitals, Claire's high school graduation, Claire's college acceptance letter, Claire and Michael's first photo together. I scrolled through them all, 53 photos spanning 32 years. I appeared in exactly 3 of them. Once, barely visible in the background of a Christmas photo from 1998. Once, cropped to the edge of Claire's Sweet 16 party, my face half cut from the frame. Once, at our mother's funeral, standing far enough from Claire that we might have been strangers. "Where are the rest?" I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. "What rest?" "The rest of the photos, the ones with both of us. We grew up in the same house, Daniel. We shared a room until I was 10. We went to the same schools. We had the same friends for a while, before—" I trailed off, remembering when that had changed, when Claire started middle school and decided I was too young, too awkward, too much of a liability to her social standing, when she'd asked our parents if she could have her own room, and they'd converted the guest room for her without asking me how I felt about sleeping alone. Daniel watched me with those kind, crinkled eyes. I think they were removed. Why? I don't know, but I helped the DJ set up earlier, and I saw him talking to your sister about the slideshow. She had him delete a bunch of photos. She said they didn't fit the narrative. The narrative? I thought about all the stories Claire had told over the years, the carefully edited version of our childhood that she presented to friends and boyfriends and eventually to Michael. In her version, she was the golden child who'd succeeded despite challenges. The challenges were never named specifically, just vaguely referenced hardships that made her strength more impressive. I was one of those unnamed challenges, I realized. A difficult younger sister, a burden, something to overcome and then minimize in the retelling. "Can I see the original file?" I asked, before the deletions. Daniel hesitated. "The DJ has it on his laptop. I only have the edited version." "But he'd have a backup, right? Photographers always have backups." "Usually, yeah." Daniel looked toward the kitchen door, then back at me. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" "I don't know what I'm thinking yet." That was a lie. I knew exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking about how many times I'd made myself smaller for Claire, how many times I'd been told to be quieter, less visible, more convenient, how I'd skipped my own college graduation ceremony because Claire had a job interview that same weekend and needed our parents' support, how I'd taken a week off work when our mother got sick, sleeping in a chair by her hospital bed while Claire visited twice and spent most of both visits on her phone. How I'd found our mother's letters after she died, letters addressed to both of us, and given them to Claire because she'd said she wanted to read them first, and then she'd never given them back. How I'd attended every one of Claire's important events, and she'd missed almost all of mine. How I'd sent congratulations cards and birthday presents and thoughtful gifts, while she sent group text messages if she remembered at all. How I'd convinced myself that this was normal, that this was how sisters were, that I was being oversensitive or demanding too much, or failing to understand the complexity of adult relationships. But there was nothing complex about being seated behind a pillar at your sister's wedding. There was nothing complicated about being erased from the family story, photo by photo, year by year, until you were barely visible even when you were standing right there. "The DJ setup is in the corner by the band," Daniel said quietly. "His laptop should be there. I could distract him for a few minutes if you wanted to look." "Why would you help me?" He thought about this, his hand resting on his camera. "My family's complicated too. Lots of people who care more about how things look than how things are. I spent most of my 20s trying to be invisible at family events because it was easier than dealing with the questions and judgments." He met my eyes. "And then one day I realized that being invisible wasn't easier. It was just different kind of hard, the kind that hollows you out from the inside." The band was playing something upbeat now, something that made people clap along. Through the door, I could hear laughter and the percussion of dancing feet. "I don't want to ruin her wedding," I said. "I'm not suggesting you ruin anything. I'm suggesting you look at a file on a laptop. What you do with what you find, that's up to you." I touched the red thread bracelet, remembered my mother shaking hands tying it around my wrist, remembered her voice, thready and weak but still certain. Remembered the truth of things, Livy, even when other people try to reshape it, especially then. "Okay," I said, "let's go look." We slipped back into the reception hall through the side door. The room had transformed in my absence. The lighting was lower now, more romantic. Most guests had abandoned their tables to crowd around the dance floor. Children chased each other between empty chairs. The bar was 3 deep with people ordering drinks. Daniel led me along the perimeter of the room, staying in the shadows. We passed table 14, where my cold scallops sat untouched, the candle still unlit. We passed tables full of empty wine glasses and crumpled napkins and half-eaten desserts. We passed my father talking to Michael's parents, all of them laughing about something I couldn't hear. The DJ setup was in the corner, exactly where Daniel said it would be. A folding table held 2 laptops, a mixing board, and several external hard drives. The DJ himself was near the dance floor, headphones around his neck, talking to the bandleader about the next set. "I'll keep watch," Daniel said. "You've got maybe 3 minutes." I sat down at the laptop and woke the screen. No password. The desktop was cluttered with folders labeled by date and client name. I found the one marked Bennett Chen 10/24/25 and opened it. Inside were several subfolders: music, announcements, toasts, slideshow. I clicked on slideshow and found 3 files: slideshow_final, slideshow draft, and slideshow original backup. I opened the backup file. The photo viewer loaded slowly, thumbnail by thumbnail. And there we were. There I was. Not erased, not cropped, not minimized, just there, existing in the frame of our family story. Claire and me building sandcastles on the beach when I was 4, both of us sun-browned and gap-toothed. Claire and me in matching Halloween costumes, year after year, salt and pepper shakers, ketchup and mustard, thing 1 and thing 2. Claire and me at the kitchen table doing homework, her helping me with factions, both of us bent over the same notebook. Claire and me visiting our mother in the hospital during her first round of chemo, Claire holding her left hand and me holding her right. Claire and me at our mother's bedside during her last week, both of us red-eyed and exhausted. Claire and me standing together at the funeral, holding each other up because there was no one else. Photos I'd forgotten existed, photos that told a different story than the one Claire had curated. Photos that showed a relationship more complicated than simple erasure. There had been love once, or something like it. There had been sisterhood, even if it had curdled into something else. I scrolled to the end of the file and found something that made me stop breathing. A scanned document labeled final_letter mom. I opened it. The image quality was poor, clearly photographed from a physical letter rather than properly scanned. But I could read our mother's handwriting, still elegant even in her final weeks. The letter was dated 3 days before she died. To both my girls. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I can't say these things to your faces. The medication makes me too tired now, and there's so much I need to tell you before I run out of time. Claire, you've always been my fierce one. You were born reaching for things, demanding your place in the world, and I loved that about you. You made me brave when I was afraid. You made me fight harder because I wanted to give you the world you deserved. But somewhere along the way, I think I failed you. I let you believe that being fierce meant being hard. I let you think that protecting yourself meant pushing others away. I taught you to win, but I didn't teach you to make room for other people's victories. I'm sorry for that. Olivia, you've always been my gentle one. You were born observing, understanding, making space for everyone else's needs before your own. I loved that about you too. You made me soft when the world made me brittle. You reminded me that kindness wasn't weakness. But I failed you too, baby. I let you believe that being gentle meant being small. I let you think that making space meant shrinking yourself. I taught you to accommodate, but I didn't teach you to take up room. I'm sorry for that. I want you both to have something of mine. Claire, I'm leaving you my pearl necklace, the one your grandmother gave me when I got married. It's beautiful and valuable and suited to the life you're building. Wear it on important days and remember that strength and grace can coexist. Olivia, I'm leaving you my recipe notebook, the blue one with all my handwritten notes. It's not valuable in the traditional sense, but it contains every meal I ever learned to cook, every birthday cake I ever made for you girls, every holiday dinner that brought us together. More importantly, it contains my notes in the margins, the stories behind the recipes, the memories they hold. Someday, when you're ready, make these meals for people you love. Remember that nourishment is a form of care, and care is never wasted. There's more I need to say, but the nurse is here with more medication, and I'm so tired. Just remember, you're sisters, your blood and bone and shared history. You're allowed to be different from each other. You're allowed to disappoint each other sometimes. But please, please don't erase each other. Don't let difference become distance. Don't let competition become cruelty. Love takes up all the room there is. There's always enough to go around. Mom. I read it twice, then a third time. The recipe notebook. She'd left me the recipe notebook. The blue one with the leather cover and the worn pages, filled with our mother's precise handwriting and margin notes. Olivia's favorite, make for bad days. Claire asked for this every birthday. Their father proposed the night I made this soup. I'd never seen this letter. Claire had handled our mother's estate, sorted through her belongings, distributed her possessions according to what she said were our mother's wishes. She'd given me some books and a few pieces of costume jewelry. She'd kept the pearl necklace, which I'd seen her wear exactly once, to a charity gala where she'd posted several photos on Instagram. But the recipe notebook? I'd never seen it. When I'd asked Claire about it, she'd said our mother had thrown it out years ago during a move. She said the recipes were outdated anyway, Claire had told me. Everything's online now. But here was proof, in our mother's own handwriting, that she'd meant to leave it to me, that it contained more than recipes, that it was meant to be a gift of stories and memories and the particular kind of love that comes through feeding people. Claire had taken it, or hidden it, or destroyed it. She'd also never shown me this letter. She'd read selected portions at the funeral. I remembered that now. She'd read the parts about being fierce and strong, about the pearl necklace. She'd cried beautifully, her makeup running in photogenic streaks. People had hugged her and told her how brave she was. She'd never mentioned the parts about failing us, about teaching the wrong lessons, about not erasing each other. She'd certainly never mentioned the recipe notebook. Time, Daniel said quietly behind me. I closed the file and stood up just as the DJ started walking back toward his setup. My hands were shaking. My chest felt too tight, like I'd forgotten how to breathe properly. Daniel guided me back toward the shadows, back toward the safety of the crowd. But instead of returning to table 14, he led me out another side door, this one opening onto a small courtyard where smokers had gathered. We walked past them to a bench near a fountain, far enough from the building that the music became muffled. I sat down. The stone bench was cold through the silk of my dress. The fountain burbled behind us, a sound like continuous rain. "What did you find?" Daniel asked. I told him about the letter, about the recipe notebook, about my mother's last wishes being curated and edited and selectively shared, about being left with books and costume jewelry while the meaningful inheritance, the one specifically meant for me, disappeared. "That's theft," Daniel said. "Legal theft, maybe, but still theft." "It's more than that." I looked up at the building, at the warm light spilling from the windows. "It's revision. She's been revising our history for years, deleting me from the story photo by photo, memory by memory, and I let her. I participated in my own erasure because it was easier than fighting." "What do you want to do?" I thought about the pillar, about the cold plate and the unlit candle and the single chair, about the seating chart notation for aesthetics, about the slideshow missing 50 photos of our shared childhood, about a letter I'd never seen, a notebook I'd never received, a truth that had been reshaped into something more convenient. I thought about my mother's words, "Don't erase each other." "I want the truth to be visible," I said, "not for revenge, not to hurt her, just, I want the truth to exist in the room, even if it's uncomfortable. I want people to see what was there before it got edited." Daniel pulled out his phone. "The DJ's laptop is unlocked." I could send the original slideshow to his playlist queue. When it's time for the photo montage, which I think is after the cake cutting, the real version could play instead of the edited one. He'd notice. He'd stop it. Not if I distract him at the right moment, ask him a technical question, have a fake equipment emergency. I touched the red thread bracelet. That feels like sabotage. It's the opposite of sabotage. Sabotage is destruction. This is restoration. The smokers filed back inside, laughing about something. The courtyard fell quiet except for the fountain. "What about the letter?" I asked. "Do you have a copy?" "I can send it to you right now." "Could you print it?" Daniel looked at his phone. The venue has a business center. I saw it when I was scouting photo locations. It's supposed to be for guests who need to work during events, but it's usually unlocked. They have a printer in there. I want to read it, I said, during the toasts, just the parts about the recipe notebook and not erasing each other. I want Claire to hear it. I want everyone to hear it. That's bold. That's truth. We sat in silence for a moment. A car alarm went off somewhere in the distance. The fountain kept burbling its endless rain. "Are you sure?" Daniel asked. "Once you do this, you can't undo it. Your relationship with your sister will change." "It's already changed. I've just been pretending it hasn't." I looked at him. "Why are you helping me, really?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Because I spent my 20s making myself invisible to keep the peace. I missed my grandmother's last birthday party because my parents thought it would be awkward to have me there after I came out. I sat in my apartment that night, alone, eating takeout and telling myself it was fine, that I understood, that they just needed time." "What happened?" "She died 6 months later, and I never got to tell her that I loved her, that I was grateful for all the time she'd been kind to me when other family members weren't. I never got to say goodbye." He looked up at the building, at the lit windows. "I don't know your whole story with your sister, but I know what it feels like to be erased for someone else's comfort, and I know that staying quiet doesn't keep the peace. It just makes the noise happen inside your head instead." I reached over and took his hand, not romantically, just as one person to another, one invisible guest to another former invisible guest. He squeezed back. "Let's go restore some truth," I said. We went back inside through the main entrance this time, no longer hiding. The reception was in full swing. The cake had been brought out, a 4-tiered masterpiece covered in sugar flowers. Claire and Michael posed in front of it while the photographer directed them. "Closer together. Smile. Look at each other. Perfect." Daniel left me near the bar while he went to the business center. I ordered a vodka tonic and watched my sister cut the cake with Michael's hand over hers on the knife. Everyone applauded. Everyone took photos with their phones. Claire fed Michael a bite, delicate and romantic, nothing smashed into his face. He fed her a bite in return. More applause, more photos. My father stood nearby, beaming. My aunt and uncle, Claire's godparents, raised their champagne glasses in salute. Michael's parents embraced each other, clearly emotional. Everyone was so happy, so convinced of the perfection of the moment. And it was perfect in its way. Claire looked beautiful, Michael looked smitten, the cake was flawless, the music was lovely, the decorations were exactly as planned. But perfection built on erasure isn't perfection. It's just a very pretty lie. Daniel returned and slipped me a printed copy of the letter, folded small. Business Center was open. I also swapped the slideshow file while the DJ was getting cake. The original will play instead of the edited version. When? Should be right after the toasts. That's what the schedule says. My heart started beating faster. What if this is a mistake? Then it's your mistake to make, but I don't think it is. The coordinator tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin our toasts. If the wedding party could please come to the head table." I watched the bridesmaids and groomsmen gather near Claire and Michael. I watched my father take his place with a stack of note cards. I watched Michael's best man adjust his tie nervously. The coordinator looked around the room. "We also have a special toast from the bride's sister. Olivia, are you here?" Every head turned, scanning the room. Claire's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Michael looked confused. He clearly hadn't known about this. I raised my hand from my position at the bar. "I'm here." "Wonderful. Please come up after the best man." I walked toward the front of the room, my heels clicking on the parquet floor. I could feel people watching me, trying to place me. I looked enough like Claire that they could probably see the family resemblance, but different enough that I registered as unexpected. As I passed table 14, I saw my cold plate still sitting there, the candles still unlit. My father went first. He told stories about Claire as a little girl, about her determination and drive, about knowing from the time she could walk that she'd do great things. He cried a little when he talked about how proud our mother would be. He raised his glass. To Claire and Michael, may your love be as strong as Claire's will. Everyone laughed and drank. Michael's best man went next. He told funny stories about college, about Michael's terrible cooking and worse dating advice, about the first time Michael mentioned Claire and how his whole face had changed. He raised his glass. To my best friend and the woman who somehow convinced him he's smooth, you deserve each other. More laughter, more drinking. Then it was my turn. I walked to the microphone on shaking legs. The room fell quiet. I could see Claire's face now, could read the warning in her eyes. Not here, not now, don't. I unfolded the letter and smoothed it against the podium. I'm Olivia, I said, Claire's sister. Most of you probably didn't know she had a sister, which is fine. We haven't been close in recent years. I looked directly at Claire. But we used to be. We used to build sandcastles together and dress up in matching costumes and stay up late talking about our dreams. I could feel the confusion in the room, the uncertainty about where this was going. Our mother died 3 years ago, I continued. She left us both letters. I only saw my letter tonight because Claire never showed it to me. But I want to read part of it now, if that's okay. Olivia, Claire started, half standing. It'll just take a minute, I said, and something in my voice made her sit back down. I read the section about the recipe notebook, about it being meant for me. About the stories in the margins and the memories it contained. I read the part about not erasing each other, about love taking up all the room there is. The room was completely silent now, except for my voice and the sound of the fountain outside. When I finished, I folded the letter and looked at my sister. Mom left me her recipe notebook, Claire, the blue one. You told me she threw it away, but she didn't. She wanted me to have it. I paused. I'd like it back, please. Claire's face had gone white. Michael was looking at her with an expression I couldn't quite read. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. I don't, Claire started. This isn't the time. You're right, I said. This isn't the time. This is your wedding, and I don't want to ruin it. I just want people to see the truth, to see all of it, not just the edited version. I nodded to Daniel, who was standing near the DJ booth. He said something to the DJ, who frowned and looked at his laptop, then started clicking through files with increasing urgency. The lights dimmed. The screen behind the head table flickered to life. The slideshow began. But it wasn't Claire's curated version. It was the original, the real one. Photos appeared in chronological order. Both of us as babies, both of us learning to walk, both of us covered in birthday cake, both of us at the beach, at the park, at the zoo, both of us doing homework at the kitchen table, both of us in Halloween costumes year after year, both of us visiting our mother in the hospital, holding her hands, both of us at her funeral, holding each other. 53 photos of our shared history, projected for everyone to see. I heard gasps, whispers. Someone said, I didn't know there were 2 sisters. Someone else said, look how close they used to be. Claire stood up, her chair scraping loud against the floor. Turn it off. That's not the right file. But the DJ was scrambling with his laptop, clearly confused about how the wrong file had loaded. Daniel had positioned himself in the way, asking urgent questions about a fake technical issue. The slideshow kept playing. I watched my sister's carefully constructed narrative unravel photo by photo. I watched people see me, really see me, for the first time all night. I watched our shared past become undeniable. The final photo was one I barely remembered. Claire and me in our mother's hospital room the day before she died. We were both sitting on her bed, one on each side, all 3 of us holding hands in the middle. Our mother was tiny by then, almost translucent, but she was smiling. And Claire and I were looking at each other across our mother's body, our faces showing the same grief, the same exhaustion, the same love. The slideshow ended. The lights came back up. The room was dead silent. Claire was crying, her perfect makeup finally running in streaks that weren't photogenic. Michael had his arm around her, but he was looking at me with something like recognition. I'm sorry, I said to the room. I didn't mean to upset anyone. I just wanted the truth to be visible. I looked at Claire. I wanted to exist in your story, even if it made things less perfect. I stepped away from the microphone and walked back through the silent room, past the head table, past my father, who looked stricken, past tables full of guests who didn't know where to look. Daniel met me halfway and offered his arm. I took it. We walked out the front door together into the October night. The air was cool and clean after the warm staleness of the reception hall. Car horns honked in the distance. Someone laughed on a nearby sidewalk. The city hummed its usual indifferent song. "You okay?" Daniel asked. "I don't know yet." I looked back at the building, at the warm light still spilling from the windows. "I just changed everything." "Yeah, you did." "Was it wrong?" I don't think right and wrong are the right questions. I think the question is, can you live with the truth being visible? I thought about the pillar, about being hidden for aesthetics, about photos deleted and letters withheld and inheritance stolen, about making myself small and quiet and convenient for years, decades, always trying to be the kind of sister who didn't cause problems. "Yes," I said, "I can live with the truth being visible. I don't think I can live with it being hidden anymore." My phone buzzed, a text from Claire. "How could you do this to me, on my wedding day?" I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back, "How could you do any of this to me, on any day?" I turned my phone off. "Do you have anywhere to be?" Daniel asked. "I was supposed to spend the night at my dad's house, but I don't think that's a good idea anymore. There's a 24-hour diner about 3 blocks from here. Makes pretty good pie." "Pie sounds good." We walked through the city streets, past closed shops and open bars, past groups of friends laughing and couples holding hands. My heels hurt, but I didn't care. The cool air felt like medicine. The diner was exactly what I needed: bright fluorescent lights, vinyl booths, laminated menus, and the smell of coffee that had been sitting too long. We slid into a corner booth and ordered pie, apple for me, cherry for him, and coffee even though it was late. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. I guess I need to find a lawyer, figure out if I can legally get the recipe notebook back." I stirred sugar into my coffee. I need to have some hard conversations with my family, set boundaries that I should have set years ago. "Will you forgive her? Eventually?" I don't know that either. Forgiveness feels complicated. I don't want to carry anger around forever, but I also don't want to pretend nothing happened. I tasted the pie. It was good, not fancy, but honest. Maybe there's something in between. Maybe I can acknowledge what she did and still move forward, just not in the way she wants me to. Which is? Silently, invisibly, making myself small so she can stay comfortable. Daniel nodded. "I get that." We ate our pie in comfortable silence. The diner's TV played the news with the sound off. A waitress refilled our coffee without asking. A drunk couple stumbled in and ordered breakfast food. "Can I tell you something?" Daniel said. "When I first saw you tonight, sitting behind that pillar, you looked like a ghost, like you were haunting your own family. But now," he gestured at me with his fork, "now you look real, solid." "I feel solid," I said. "Terrified, but solid." "Terrified is better than invisible." "Is it?" "Yeah, because if you're terrified, it means you're doing something that matters enough to be scared of." My phone was still off. I didn't turn it back on. Whatever messages were accumulating could wait until morning. For now, I just wanted to sit in this bright, honest diner and eat pie with someone who'd seen me when no one else bothered to look. We talked for 2 hours. About families and forgiveness and the difference between keeping the peace and keeping yourself whole. About Daniel's grandmother and the birthday party he'd missed. About the recipe notebook and whether I'd ever get it back. About what happens when you stop participating in your own erasure. Eventually, the waitress started giving us pointed looks, and we realized we'd been sitting in the same booth for hours with just pie and coffee. "I should get a hotel," I said, "figure out where to go from here." "There's a decent place 2 blocks over, not fancy, but clean." We walked there together through the empty streets. The hotel lobby was generic and forgettable in the best way. Neutral carpets, abstract art, a desk clerk who didn't care about our stories. I got a room. Daniel walked me to the elevator. "Thank you," I said, "for seeing me, for helping me see myself." "You did the hard part." "We did it together." He smiled. "Yeah, we did." The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, then turned back. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you take my hand, back behind the pillar? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. Daniel thought about this, his hand resting on the elevator door to keep it from closing. Because I've been invisible too, and when you're invisible, you learn to recognize it in other people. It's like a frequency only certain people can hear. He stepped back. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. You can't walk away. The elevator doors closed. I rode up to the 7th floor and let myself into a room that smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and air conditioning. I kicked off my heels and lay down on the bed in my champagne-colored dress, staring at the ceiling. My phone was still off. I kept it that way. Tomorrow I would turn it on. Tomorrow I would deal with angry texts and hurt feelings and family members demanding explanations. Tomorrow I would find a lawyer and ask about inheritance law. Tomorrow I would decide what boundaries looked like and how to enforce them. But tonight, I just lay in the dark and felt the weight of the red thread bracelet on my wrist. I thought about my mother's shaking hands tying it there. I thought about her voice. Remember the truth of things, Livy. Even when other people try to reshape it. I'd remembered, finally, after years of letting other people reshape my truth into something more convenient, I'd remembered. I fell asleep in my dress, one hand touching the red thread bracelet, the other pressed flat against my chest where I could feel my heart beating strong and steady. I woke at dawn to someone knocking on my door. For a moment I was disoriented. Strange room, still wearing my dress, light too bright through unfamiliar curtains. Then memory returned in a rush. The wedding, the pillar, the slideshow, the truth made visible. More knocking. I looked through the peephole and saw Daniel holding 2 cups of coffee. I opened the door. How did you find my room? I didn't leave last night. Got a room 3 doors down. He offered me a coffee. Figured you might need this when you woke up. I took it. Black, 2 sugars. Exactly how I'd had it at the diner. You remembered. I pay attention. We sat on the small couch by the window. Outside, the city was just beginning to wake. A garbage truck rumbled past. Early morning joggers passed in pairs and small groups. The sky was that particular shade of pre-sunrise gray that holds all possibilities. I turned on my phone. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, 12 voicemails. I started reading the texts in order. Claire, how could you do this to me? On my wedding day? Claire, everyone is asking questions. This was supposed to be perfect. Claire, you're so selfish. You've always been selfish. My father, Olivia, please call me. We need to talk about what happened. My aunt, that was inappropriate. Whatever issues you have with your sister, a wedding wasn't the place. Michael, this is Michael. I think we need to have a conversation. Not tonight, but soon. Claire, I can't believe you would try to ruin the happiest day of my life. Claire, Mom would be so disappointed in you. That last one made my hands shake. I set the phone down. Bad? Daniel asked. Expected. I picked the phone back up. But there's one from Michael that's different. He wants to talk. The groom? Yeah, just to talk, he said, not to yell. I kept scrolling. More messages from relatives I barely knew, most of them scolding, some of them confused, a few, surprisingly, supportive. My cousin Rachel, I had no idea you existed until tonight. That's messed up. You okay? My mother's best friend, Karen. Your mother would be proud of you for speaking up. Call me when you're ready. And then, buried in the messages, one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Sarah Chen, Michael's sister. I'm also a family law attorney. If you need help recovering your mother's belongings, I'd like to help. Pro bono. What Claire did was wrong. I showed that one to Daniel. Looks like you've got an ally, he said. Looks like I've got several. I scrolled back to Claire's messages, counted them, 17 in total, sent between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., each one angrier than the last, each one more focused on how I'd ruined her day, her photos, her narrative. Not one of them acknowledged what she'd done, not one of them apologized. I listened to the voicemails, my father's voice, tired and sad. Livy, I don't understand what happened tonight. Your sister is devastated. We need to talk about this as a family. My aunt's voice, sharp with judgment. That display was completely unacceptable. You owe your sister an apology. Michael's voice, careful and measured. Olivia, this is Michael. I know tonight was complicated, but I'd like to understand what happened. Not to take sides, just to understand. Could we meet for coffee this week? And then Claire's voice, recorded at 3 a.m., slightly slurred. You've always been jealous of me. Always. You couldn't stand that I was happy, so you had to ruin it. You had to make everything about you. Well, congratulations. You got attention. I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth losing your family. I played that last one twice, listened to the alcohol in her voice, the self-pity, the absolute refusal to examine her own actions, listened to her reframe my moment of truth as attention-seeking, listened to her threaten me with the loss of family, the family that had already hidden me behind a pillar, already erased me from photos, already stolen my inheritance. She's not going to apologize, I said to Daniel. Not now, maybe not ever. Does that change what you need to do? No, I still need the recipe notebook back. I still need to set boundaries. I still need to stop making myself invisible. I looked at him. But it means I need to accept that she might never understand why I did what I did. Can you live with that? I thought about my mother's letter, about love taking up all the room there is, about not erasing each other. I can live with telling the truth and being called selfish for it. I can live with being accused of ruining perfection when perfection was built on lies. I touched the red thread bracelet. What I can't live with anymore is pretending, shrinking, disappearing. Daniel raised his coffee cup. To being visible. I touched my cup to his. To being visible. We sat in silence, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. The sun started to rise, painting the buildings gold and pink. Car horns replaced garbage trucks. The joggers were replaced by people in business clothes, walking fast with paper cups and briefcases. What's your first step? Daniel asked. I'm going to text Michael's sister, accept her help. I opened my phone and started typing. Then I'm going to call that family law attorney and start the process of getting the notebook back. Then I'm going to call my father and tell him exactly what boundaries I need if we're going to have any relationship going forward. And Claire? I'll talk to her eventually, but not until I'm ready, not until I can do it without apologizing for telling the truth. I sent the text to Sarah Chen. Her response came back within minutes. I'm glad you reached out. How about we meet tomorrow? I have some questions about your mother's will and the distribution of her personal effects. Tomorrow, I said to Daniel, we meet tomorrow. We? You're part of this now. You helped restore the truth. You saw me when no one else did. I looked at him. Unless you want to walk away, I'd understand if you did. This is going to get messy. Daniel was quiet for a moment, looking out at the sunrise. Then he said, my grandmother used to make this soup, chicken and rice with vegetables. She'd make it whenever someone was sick or sad or celebrating. It was her way of saying I love you without words. That sounds nice. It was. After she died, I tried to recreate it. I called my mother, asked if she had the recipe. He said, grandmother never wrote anything down, that it was all in her head and now it was gone. He turned to look at me, but that wasn't true. I found out later that grandmother had a recipe notebook, pages and pages of recipes with notes in the margins, just like your mother's. My mother has it now. She just never offered to share it. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm telling you this because I understand what you're fighting for. It's not just a notebook. It's the proof that you were loved, that you mattered, that someone thought you were worth leaving something to. He met my eyes. So no, I don't want to walk away. I want to help you fight for that proof, if you'll let me. I reached over and took his hand, not romantically, still, just as one person to another, one witness to another. Okay, I said, let's fight. The meeting with Sarah Chen happened the next day at a coffee shop downtown. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and direct, wearing a blazer and carrying a leather portfolio. First, she said, settling into her chair, I want you to know that what happened at the wedding was the talk of the family brunch this morning. Michael told me everything. The pillar, the seating chart, the slideshow, the letter. His parents are horrified. My parents are horrified. Claire tried to spin it as you having some kind of breakdown, but Michael shut that down. He told everyone the truth. He did? He did. He's pretty upset with Claire right now, actually. He said he would never have married into a family that treated people that way if he'd known. He's questioning whether he knows Claire at all. Sarah pulled out a legal pad. But that's not why we're here. Tell me about the recipe notebook. I told her everything about my mother's letter, about Claire claiming the notebook had been thrown away, about the specific bequest in the letter that was never honored. Sarah took notes, her pen moving in quick, precise strokes. Did your mother have a will? Yes, Claire was the executor. She handled everything. And the will, did it mention the notebook specifically? I don't know. I never saw it. Claire just told me what it said. Sarah's pen stopped moving. You never saw your mother's will? No. Should I have? As a beneficiary? Absolutely. It's a legal document. You have the right to see it. She made another note. I'm going to need you to request a copy from the probate court. Also, I want to see that letter, the one your mother wrote, the scanned version if you have it. Daniel pulled up the photo on his phone and showed it to her. She studied it for a long time, zooming in on different sections, reading it twice. This is good, she said finally. This establishes clear intent, even if the will doesn't mention the notebook specifically. Your mother wanted you to have it. She said so explicitly. She looked up at me. Have you asked Claire directly for it? Not yet. I wanted to understand my legal standing first. Smart. Here's what I recommend. I'll draft a formal letter requesting the notebook's return. I'll cite this letter from your mother as evidence of intent. I'll also request a copy of the will and an accounting of all personal effects distributed from the estate. If Claire refuses or claims the notebook is gone, we can file a civil suit for conversion, essentially the improper retention of someone else's property. How long will that take? Could be months, could be longer if she fights it. But the letter itself might be enough to convince her to return it, especially given what happened at the wedding. She's not in a strong position right now, PR-wise. I thought about Claire's text messages, her anger, her accusations, her total refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She's going to fight it, I said. She's not going to just hand it over. Then we'll file suit, and we'll win, Sarah closed her portfolio. But before we do any of that, you need to decide something. Do you want a relationship with your sister after this? Because legal action will probably end whatever's left between you. I thought about the pillar, about the photos that were deleted, about the letter that was hidden, about years of being told to be smaller, quieter, less visible. There's nothing left to end, I said, not if it was built on me disappearing. Sarah nodded. Then we proceed. I'll have the letter drafted by tomorrow. We shook hands. She left. Daniel and I sat in the coffee shop, nursing drinks that had gone cold. You okay? He asked. I just lit a match, I said. And I'm about to burn down what's left of my relationship with my sister. Or you're clearing away the dead wood so something real can grow. What if nothing grows? What if it's just ash? Then at least you'll know. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd fought for yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Please come to dinner tonight. We need to talk as a family. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back, I'll come, but I'm bringing someone with me, and I have conditions. His response came back quickly. What conditions? I thought about what I needed. What would make this bearable? 1. Claire apologizes for hiding the letter and the notebook. 2. I get to speak without being interrupted. 3. You acknowledge that what happened at the wedding was a consequence of years of being minimized, not an unprovoked attack. 4. We discuss how family relationships move forward with clear boundaries. 3 minutes passed. Then, those are reasonable conditions. 6 p.m. at the house. I showed the text to Daniel. Want to come to an incredibly awkward family dinner? Absolutely not. But I'll do it anyway. My father's house was the same house I'd grown up in, a 3-bedroom colonial with blue shutters and a front porch that needed restaining. The lawn was perfectly maintained, the hedges trimmed into precise shapes. Everything looked exactly as I remembered, except smaller somehow, like I had grown and the house hadn't. Daniel and I sat in the car for a minute before going in. You don't have to do this, he said. You could turn around right now. I know, but I need to say what I need to say. Even if they don't listen, I need to say it. We walked to the front door. I didn't knock. I still had my key. The house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary, smells from my childhood that triggered a complicated mix of comfort and pain. My father appeared in the hallway. He looked older than he had at the wedding, more tired, gray hair that needed cutting, lines around his eyes that seemed deeper. Livy, he said. Then to Daniel, you must be the friend. Daniel, nice to meet you, sir. We moved into the dining room. The table was set for 4. My father sat at the head. Claire sat to his right, her eyes red but her makeup perfect. She looked at me without expression, her hands folded in her lap. I took the seat across from her. Daniel sat beside me. Thank you for coming, my father said. I know this is difficult. It is difficult, I agreed. It's been difficult for a long time. Claire made a small sound, almost a laugh. You want to talk about difficult? You humiliated me at my wedding, in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, I said calmly. I told the truth. You ruined the happiest day of my life. You hid me behind a pillar. You deleted me from the slideshow. You stole Mom's recipe notebook after she specifically said it was for me. You've been erasing me for years. I kept my voice level. So yes, I told the truth. I'm sorry it happened at your wedding. I'm sorry it hurt you, but I'm not sorry for finally being visible. This is exactly what I mean, Claire said, turning to our father. She's making everything about her, like she always does. When have I ever made things about me? I asked. I skipped my own college graduation so you could have the weekend for a job interview. I spent 2 months at Mom's bedside while you visited twice. I've attended every major event in your life while you've missed almost all of mine. So please tell me when I made everything about me. Claire's face flushed. I had work. I had responsibilities. We all had responsibilities. I just chose to prioritize differently than you did. My father held up a hand. Let's not do this. Let's not list grievances. We're here to move forward. I can't move forward without addressing the past, I said, and I can't address the past if we're all pretending it didn't happen. What do you want, Olivia? Claire asked. Her voice was sharp, defensive. Do you want me to apologize, to grovel, to admit that I'm a terrible sister? I want the recipe notebook back. I want you to acknowledge that you hid it from me, and I want you to show me Mom's will, because I've never seen it and I'm legally entitled to. Silence. Claire looked at our father. Our father looked at his hands. The notebook is gone, Claire said, finally. I told you, Mom threw it away. That's a lie, I said. Mom wrote a letter 3 days before she died, specifically saying she wanted me to have it. You read that letter. You quoted parts of it at her funeral. But you never showed me the whole thing, and you never gave me the notebook. I don't have it. Then where is it? More silence. Claire's jaw tightened. It was falling apart. The pages were yellow. The writing was fading. I threw it away after Mom died because there was no point in keeping something that was disintegrating. You threw away something Mom specifically said was for me? It was trash, Olivia, worthless, just some old recipes that you can find online anyway. It was mine. She wanted me to have it. The value isn't for you to decide. Claire stood up abruptly. I can't do this. I came here thinking we could have a rational conversation, but you're just attacking me. Again. She looked at our father. I'm leaving. Sit down, he said quietly. Dad, sit down. Claire sat. I'd never heard that tone from our father before, firm and final. He looked at me, then at Claire, then back at his hands. Your mother gave me something before she died. She made me promise to make sure both of you got what she wanted you to have. The pearls for Claire, the notebook for Olivia. He took a breath. I failed at that. I let Claire handle the estate because I was grieving and it was easier to let someone else make decisions. I didn't check, I didn't make sure, I failed both of you. You didn't fail me, Claire said quickly. You've been wonderful. I failed Olivia, and I'm sorry for that. He stood and left the room. We heard him climbing the stairs. Claire and I sat in silence, not looking at each other. Daniel's presence beside me was the only thing keeping me grounded. My father came back carrying a blue notebook with a worn leather cover. He set it on the table in front of me. "I found this in your mother's nightstand after she died. I gave it to Claire to give to you. She said she would." He looked at Claire. "She never did." I pulled the notebook toward me with shaking hands, opened it to the first page. My mother's handwriting, precise and elegant despite the pain medication. Bennett Family Recipes. For my daughter Olivia, who has always known that feeding people is an act of love. I flipped through the pages. Hundreds of recipes, each one annotated with notes in the margins. Olivia's favorite, make for bad days. Made this the night Livy was born. "This is the soup that fixes everything." Tears ran down my face. I didn't try to stop them. "I kept it," Claire said, her voice small. "I kept it because I was angry, because Mom gave you something that meant something and gave me something that was just pretty, because the pearls were expensive but empty and the notebook was worthless but full of her. I kept it because I wanted what you had." "So you took it?" "I took it. And then I couldn't figure out how to give it back without admitting what I'd done, so I lied. I said it was gone, and then I kept lying." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry." "Are you sorry you took it, or sorry you got caught?" She flinched. "Both. I don't know. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I took it. I'm sorry I hid you at the wedding. I'm sorry I deleted you from the photos. I'm sorry for all of it." "Why did you do it? Why did you hide me?" Claire looked at the table. "Because you're everything I'm not. You're genuinely kind. People like you without you having to try. You don't need to be perfect because you're already enough exactly as you are. And," her voice cracked, "I have to work so hard to be lovable. I have to be perfect. I have to control everything, because if I'm not perfect, if I don't have everything together, then what am I?" "You're my sister," I said quietly. "You're a person. That's enough." "It's never been enough for me." We sat in silence. The chicken was getting cold on the table. No one moved to eat it. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now," I said. "Maybe eventually, but right now I'm too angry, and I'm too tired of making myself small for your comfort." "I understand," Claire said. "I need boundaries. I need you to acknowledge when you've hurt me instead of making it about how my pain affects you. I need you to see me as a whole person, not as a supporting character in your story. And I need you to do the work of being a sister, not just expect me to do all the work of maintaining a relationship." "Okay. Okay. Okay. I'll try. I can't promise I'll be good at it, but I'll try." It wasn't everything. It wasn't enough to heal years of hurt, but it was something, a small opening, a possibility. My father cleared his throat. "I need to apologize too. I let this happen. I knew Claire was difficult with you sometimes, and I wrote it off as sister dynamics. I should have paid more attention. I should have protected you both, from each other and from yourselves." "You should have," I agreed, "but you're here now. That counts for something." We ate the cold chicken. We talked about logistics, how often we'd see each other, what holidays would look like, what communication would look like. We established boundaries that should have been established years ago. It was awkward and painful and necessary. When Daniel and I left 3 hours later, I was exhausted, but I was also lighter. The notebook was in my bag, the truth was out, the boundaries were set. Claire walked us to the door. "I really am sorry," she said again. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm sorry." "I believe you," I said, and I did. She was sorry. Whether that sorry would translate into actual change remained to be seen, but it was a start. Daniel and I drove back to my apartment in his car. I lived in a small one-bedroom in a building with questionable heating and walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' conversations. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My space, my refuge. I made soup, not from the recipe notebook. I wasn't ready to touch those yet. Just simple chicken soup from a recipe I knew by heart. Daniel chopped vegetables while I sautéed onions. We moved around my tiny kitchen like we'd done this before, like we'd cooked together 100 times. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Exhausted, relieved, sad, angry, grateful. I stirred the pot, everything at once. "That sounds about right." We ate the soup at my small dining table. I had flowers in a jar, cheap carnations from the bodega downstairs, but they brought color to the room. I had books stacked everywhere, spilling off shelves and piled on the floor. I had a life here, small and quiet and mine. What happens now? Daniel asked. I don't know. I have the notebook, I have boundaries with my family, I have a lawyer if I need one. I looked at him across the table. I have a friend who helped me be visible when I'd forgotten how. Just a friend? I smiled. Maybe more than a friend, if you're interested. Very interested. We cleaned up together, washing dishes in my cramped sink. My phone buzzed with messages. My cousin Rachel checking in, my mother's friend Karen inviting me to lunch, Michael asking if we could talk sometime about what family should look like. Not all the messages were kind. Some relatives were still angry, still insisting I'd been wrong to speak up at the wedding. But there were more supportive messages than I expected. The notebook sat on my counter, blue and worn and full of my mother's love. I'd read it eventually, when I was ready. I'd make the recipes and share them with people I cared about. I'd honor the gift she'd meant to give me. But not tonight. Tonight, I just wanted to sit with Daniel on my secondhand couch and watch the city lights through my window and feel the weight of being visible, of taking up space, of existing loudly in my own life. Thank you, I said to Daniel, for everything. Thank you for letting me help, for letting me be part of it. We sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened outside. The soup had been good. The conversation had been real. The truth was out. And I was here, finally, solidly, undeniably here. Not behind a pillar, not hidden in shadows, not erased from the story. Just here, taking up all the room I needed, breathing all the air I wanted, being exactly as visible as I chose to be. He took everything that could be touched. I took everything that couldn't, the truth and my peace.